structures. She built status. A vision dismissed. A future fractured. But some foundations refused to crumble. I remember the smell of fresh lumber and possibility, a scent that still brings me back to those early days. I was an architect, not just by trade, but by calling. My hands, calloused from years of sketching and model making, itched to build things that mattered, structures that breathed with the community they served. Atlanta was home, and I saw her potential not in gleaming glass towers, but in sustainable designs, in public spaces that fostered connection, in homes that didn't just shelter but nurtured. I believed in impact over profit, in leaving a legacy of thoughtful, green design. It wasn't just a job, it was a crusade, a quiet revolution of steel and wood. Emily, my wife, had a different vision of legacy. Hers involved designer clothes, exclusive parties, and the kind of sprawling, meticulously manicured suburban estate that felt alien to my ethos. She was beautiful, undeniably, with a sharp wit and an even sharper eye for status. When we first met, she'd been drawn to my passion, or so I thought. She'd called it charming, idealistic. But as the years wore on, as my firm focused on pro bono community projects or low-margin eco-housing, her admiration curdled into thinly veiled frustration. Our evenings often ended with her sighing dramatically over bank statements, a crystal glass of Chardonnay clinking against her manicured nails. "Ethan," she'd begin, her voice sweet but edged with steel. "Another one of your charity projects? When are we going to build something that actually pays for itself, something that puts us where we belong?" She'd gesture vaguely at the magazine open on her lap, usually featuring some real estate mogul's latest acquisition. She saw my passion as a flaw, an inconvenient eccentricity that kept us from the glittering world she felt entitled to. She'd undermine my work with a casual dismissiveness, calling my sustainable school designs nice little green boxes, or my community centers glorified soup kitchens. Each comment was a tiny chisel, chipping away at my resolve, at the very foundation of what I believed in. I tried to explain, to make her see the value, the long-term good, the quiet pride in building something truly meaningful. But her eyes would glaze over, already scanning the room for something more immediately gratifying. The hope I'd carried, the belief that she'd eventually understand, began to feel like a heavy stone in my gut. I started to doubt whether our paths, once seemingly aligned, had ever really been parallel at all. The cracks were there, subtle at first, like hairline fractures in a newly poured concrete slab, but growing steadily, inevitably, under the weight of unspoken resentments and clashing desires. I saw them, but I was too afraid to acknowledge what they truly meant for us, for me. The air in our home grew heavy, thick with unspoken accusations and the cloying scent of Emily's expensive perfumes, a constant reminder of the life she craved and the one I couldn't, or wouldn't, provide. Every conversation felt like walking on eggshells, each step calculated to avoid the inevitable explosion. I found myself spending longer hours at the office, not just because of my dedication, but because the quiet hum of the drafting room felt infinitely more welcoming than the tension that permeated our living spaces. I'd lose myself in blueprints, in the intricate dance of structure and light, trying to drown out the growing chorus of Emily's dissatisfaction in my head. Then came the day the foundation completely gave way. I remember it with a clarity that still stings. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon, sun slanting through the blinds, painting stripes across our polished hardwood floor. Emily had just returned from a shopping spree, her arms laden with bags from boutiques I couldn't even name. She dropped them with a thud, her face set in a mask of elegant fury. "Ethan," she started, her voice unnaturally calm, "I can't do this anymore. This life. It's not enough. You're not enough." She went on, a torrent of words I'd heard in fragments for years, but now delivered with brutal finality. She called my ambition pathetic, my work a delusional waste of talent. She accused me of holding her back, of choosing trees and impoverished communities over our future. She said I lacked the drive, the killer instinct, the willingness to play the game. She needed someone who understood the real world, someone who wasn't afraid to see success. Then came the name, delivered with a casual cruelty that ripped through me like a shrapnel shard. Marcus Thorne. A high-powered corporate lawyer, a man whose name was synonymous with ruthless acquisition and obscene wealth. He understood ambition, she declared. He understood what it took. He wouldn't waste his life designing glorified bus stops. She was leaving, just like that. For him. The words echoed in the sudden silence, bouncing off the walls of the home I had tried so hard to build for us. It wasn't just a breakup, it was an annihilation. Her departure wasn't just physical. It felt like she had taken a wrecking ball to my entire sense of self, to the very core of my being. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was an indictment of everything I believed in, everything I stood for. My work, my values, my quiet idealism. She had deemed them worthless, a reason to abandon me. The following weeks were a blur of numb existence. The house felt cavernous, each empty room a monument to what was lost. The scent of fresh lumber was replaced by the stale smell of loneliness. Sleep offered no escape, only a parade of restless nights and fragmented dreams where Emily's accusation of my lack of ambition echoed endlessly. I felt hollowed out, as if a vital organ had been surgically removed, leaving only a gaping void. The joy I once found in design, in the promise of creation, evaporated. I stared at blueprints, but the lines blurred, the structures seemed meaningless. My hands, once eager to build, felt heavy, useless. Despair was a cold, suffocating blanket that wrapped itself around me, pressing down until I could barely breathe. I questioned everything, my career, my choices, my very identity. Was she right? Was I just a fool chasing a hopeless dream, doomed to a life of quiet mediocrity while others soared? The ground beneath me had vanished, leaving me suspended in an agonizing limbo of grief and self-doubt. The future, once a vibrant canvas, was now an impenetrable, suffocating darkness. The silence in the house was deafening, the absence of Emily's voice a constant, aching presence. For weeks, I drifted, a ghost in my own life. My firm floundered, neglected, as I wrestled with the rubble of my personal world. But amidst the wreckage, something shifted. Perhaps it was the sheer exhaustion of despair, or the quiet whisper of an old, familiar stubbornness. I looked at the discarded sketches on my desk, the half-finished models gathering dust. Each line, each curve, each envisioned space was a testament to the passion Emily had scorned. It hit me then, with the force of a sudden downpour. Her betrayal wasn't an indictment of my values. It was a revelation of hers. Her foundation was built on transient desires, on the superficial glint of external success. Mine, though shattered, had always aimed for something deeper, something more enduring. I started small, picking up a pencil, tracing an old idea for a community garden pavilion. It was clumsy at first, my hand shaky, my mind clouded. But as I drew, as the lines began to connect, a faint spark flickered. This wasn't about proving her wrong, I realized. This was about proving myself right. This was about rebuilding, not just my life, but my conviction. The pain was still there, a raw, exposed nerve, but I found a strange, almost defiant strength in channeling it. Each stroke of the pencil, each carefully considered material choice, became an act of defiance against the emptiness she had left.
I poured everything into a new vision, a new firm. I called it Veridian Structures, a name that evoked green, growth, and life. We specialized in innovative, eco-friendly public buildings, designs that resonated with the very core of my architectural philosophy. There were lean months, of course, late nights fueled by cold coffee, and an unyielding will. I hired a small team of equally passionate individuals who believed in the power of thoughtful design, people who understood that a building could be more than just bricks and mortar. It could be a catalyst for change. Our first project, a solar-powered library in a struggling neighborhood, was a modest success. Then came a community health clinic, designed with natural light and healing gardens, which garnered local attention. We weren't chasing headlines or corporate giants. We were chasing impact, one sustainable structure at a time. Each completed project, each satisfied community, each hand-drawn thank you note from a child in a new school was a small victory, a tiny brick laid in the new foundation I was meticulously constructing. The desolation began to recede, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose, a growing realization that true ambition wasn't about the size of one's bank account, but the depth of one's contribution. The firm grew, slowly but steadily, like a sapling pushing through cracked concrete, finding its own light, its own strength. Years passed, marked not by the passage of time, but by the steady accumulation of purpose. Veridian Structures became more than just a firm. It was a testament to resilience, a living embodiment of the ideals Emily had once dismissed. Our work, once called charity, now spoke for itself. We designed award-winning community centers, state-of-the-art green schools, and innovative public housing projects across the Southeast. The national architectural journals, the very ones Emily used to skim for articles about corporate titans, now featured profiles of Veridian Structures and its found. Ethan. I was no longer just an architect. I was the architect, sought after for my vision, my unwavering commitment to sustainable, community-focused design. My calendar was filled with groundbreaking ceremonies, speaking engagements, and meetings with city planners eager to infuse their urban landscapes with the Veridian touch. The quiet satisfaction I felt was profound, a deep, resonant hum of fulfillment that no external validation could truly encompass. Then, one crisp autumn morning, an email landed in my inbox. The sender's name sent a jolt through me, a ghost from a past I had meticulously, painfully, walled off. Emily. It had been almost a decade. The message was effusive, almost breathless. Ethan, it began, I just saw your profile in Architectural Digest. Truly stunning work. Visionary. I always knew you had this incredible talent. There was an undercurrent of something I couldn't quite place. Admiration, certainly, but also a hint of something more manipulative. She spoke of how much she'd matured, how she now understood the true value of meaningful work, how superficial her previous life had been. She hinted at a desire to rebuild a partnership, both professional and personal, to explore what we could achieve together, now that I truly understand your genius. My first reaction was a mixture of disbelief and a flicker of the old pain, a phantom ache in a scar that had long since healed. I remembered the devastation, the raw emptiness. But then, a quiet strength settled over me. The man who had been shattered by her betrayal was gone. In his place stood someone forged in that fire, someone whose foundation was now unshakable. I learned later, through the whispers of mutual acquaintances, that Marcus Thorne had indeed left her, not for a younger version of her, but for a younger, more ambitious associate.
Emily, now facing mounting debts and the loss of her gilded cage, was searching for a new foundation, a new secure footing. And apparently, she saw mine, now shining brightly on a national stage, as a convenient landing pad. I read her messages again, seeing through the carefully crafted words, past the feigned regret, to the clear, cold calculation beneath. The wariness was immediate, a protective wall I had built around myself, brick by hard-won brick. But there was also a profound sense of liberation in recognizing her motives, in knowing that her attempts to re-enter my life held no power over the man I had become. The past was a distant echo, a lesson learned, but it no longer dictated my present or my future. The Atlanta sun beat down, warming my face as I stood on the freshly turned earth. The scent of damp soil and possibility filled the air, a familiar and comforting aroma. This was it, the groundbreaking for the new Henderson Community Center, a project Veridian Structures had poured its heart into. It wasn't just a building. It was a promise, a hub for education, health, and connection in a neighborhood that desperately needed it. I held the ceremonial shovel, its polished blade gleaming under the bright sky, feeling the weight of responsibility and immense pride. Community leaders smiled, cameras flashed, and the hum of anticipation vibrated around me. This was the culmination of years of relentless dedication, of unwavering belief in a vision. Then, a hush fell over a small pocket of the crowd. I felt it before I saw her, a shift in the atmosphere, a ripple of recognition. Emily. She emerged from the periphery, an elegant silhouette against the vibrant backdrop of banners and smiling faces. She wore a tailored suit, her hair perfectly coiffed, an air of sophisticated regret draped around her like a carefully chosen shawl. Her eyes, still captivating, met mine across the small distance. She moved towards me with a practiced grace, her smile a delicate blend of nostalgia and hopeful appeal. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice low, intimate, as she reached my side. She placed a soft hand on my arm, a gesture that once would have sent a tremor through me, now felt utterly inert. "I've been watching your work. It's truly incredible." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the construction site, then back to my face. "I see the incredible impact you're making. It's what I always knew you were capable of, deep down." She leaned in slightly, her perfume a faint, unwelcome reminder. "Imagine what we could achieve together, now that I truly understand your genius." Her words were a carefully constructed bridge, an invitation to step back into a past I had painstakingly escaped. She spoke of our shared history, of a future where we could rebuild a partnership, both professional and personal, a partnership founded on her supposed newfound appreciation for meaningful work. I looked at her, then down at the shovel in my hand, its weight grounding me. The years of pain, the despair, the slow, arduous climb back, it all flashed through my mind, a silent movie of my journey. But there was no anger now, no resentment, only a profound sense of clarity. My expression, I hoped, was calm, perhaps even a little distant. "Emily," I replied, my voice steady, clear enough for those nearby to hear, but directed only at her. "You once called my work charity. You preferred a different foundation." She flinched, her carefully composed facade momentarily cracking. "The foundation I've built now is solid," I continued, my gaze firm, "and it's built on integrity, not on the shifting sands of convenience." Her hopeful facade crumbled instantly, like cheap plaster revealing the bare, ugly brick beneath. The practiced regret in her eyes dissolved into something closer to shock, then a fleeting, desperate anger. Her hand dropped from my arm, her shoulders stiffening. She stood there, momentarily stunned, her manipulative attempt to re-enter my life having failed spectacularly, publicly. The silence around us tightened, a witness to the raw honesty of the moment. She gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of her head, a silent acknowledgement of defeat, and then, with a final, withering glance, she turned and melted back into the crowd, disappearing as quickly as she had appeared. A profound sense of liberation washed over me, a feeling so potent it made the air around me feel lighter, crisper. It wasn't triumph, not exactly. It was something far deeper, a quiet, internal victory. The ghost of Emily, the specter of her judgment and betrayal, had finally, irrevocably, been laid to rest. Her words, once sharp daggers, now felt like distant whispers, utterly devoid of power. I realized then that the healing wasn't just about moving on. It was about truly understanding the strength forged in the fire of that betrayal. My values, my passion for community-focused design, my commitment to impact over profit, these weren't weaknesses, as she had claimed. They were the very bedrock of who I was, the unshakable foundation upon which I had built a life far more meaningful and fulfilling than anything she could ever understand. I turned back to the community leaders, to the eager faces of the children gathered for the ceremony. My focus sharpened, entirely on the positive impact this new community center would create. I looked at the shovel in my hand, no longer a symbol of past pain, but of future possibility. My true success, I knew, lay not in external validation, not in the approval of someone like Emily, but in the unwavering commitment to my own integrity, to the quiet, dignified pursuit of building a better world, one sustainable structure at a time. The bittersweet taste of closure lingered, a reminder of the path I'd walked, but it was now laced with the sweet, clear taste of genuine peace. The foundation I'd built for myself, for Veridian Structures, was solid, strong, and entirely my own.